So today I want to talk quite tactically about processes and systems that if you're looking to achieve high performance, you can set up in your day-to-day life, whether you're a part of a team, whether you run a team, whether you're a business owner, whatever you might be, that I think are quite useful and ultimately not that common in terms of the advice that does exist out there. If you've watched any of my videos or been to any of my trainings, you'll have heard advice such as the importance of, for example, self-reflection, the importance of journaling, the importance of negative visualization, the higher importance of having a why and motivation, and then building discipline and accountability partners and all of this range of stuff. And to a degree, there's an argument that a lot of this ultimately advice does exist out there online. Now, one of the interesting caveats with that one of the things that really matters when it comes to mentorship or inspiration is that you need to be inspired by the person delivering the message, because otherwise the message won't matter. So that's one of the things that sometimes people forget when it comes to the advice that you do see or receive or that does exist out there, that you need to be inspired by the speaker who's giving the message, because then the message, as they say, hits differently. So that's just a bit of a side note. But what I want to talk about today is, I think I've got a list of 9 tactics that are really, really important when I think it comes to achieving success in your life. So I'm going to begin with, first of all, shout out to Kaylin, who's in our team. She gave me a quotable yesterday that I think is fantastic. So I'm going to begin there. And this one relates to, well, let me read it out. I think it's verbatim. The next person's progress reflects my own. The next person's progress reflects my own. So we rarely exist as individuals. We exist in teams. And I'm talking about in your personal life as well. If you're in a relationship, if you're part of a family, if your Pearl Lemon is a family. So when you think about progress also more globally, because you're only going to progress at the rate at which the team, if you're part of a unit, progresses also. So that's where if you can work on raising the minimum standard of your entire team, then you will also be a direct recipient and beneficiary of the results that the team and therefore you can individually produce. If you're the best performer in your team, but then your team are letting you down, actually the best way to get performance is to improve the team that you have. So that's something that you should really, really think about when it comes to your success. And that's one of the reasons at Pearl Lemon why, if you're on my YouTube or any of my channels, my greatest investment of time now is raising the minimum standard of my team, because I can only provide so much leverage. The greatest leverage that I can actually derive is by improving the base standard of the overall team from here to here. And in doing that and trying to do that globally, there'll be individuals that sit within that go from here all the way up to here. But that's the way that I believe, as of right now, that I can help Pearl Lemon drive towards becoming more profitable, generate more revenue, and slowly, inch by inch, march towards that billion pound, I should start saying pound, that £1 billion revenue goal that I've got before I hit 50. That's the goal that I want to achieve, £1 billion before I'm 50. I'm 38 years old this summer. And I know that the next person's progress will reflect my own progress. So people will say, Deepak, you might be great, but how good is your team? Because you ain't making £1 billion yourself. So how good is your team? That's why that should also apply to all of you when you think about your structures and your mechanisms. To some degree, attempt to drag people with you, and then you will see that the stars will make themselves known, because they'll be very responsive to your requests. And then what you need to do, to some degree, depending upon the environment that you have, is reshuffle your team to say, well, there's poor performers or people that are poor performers because they're poor of mind, because in the end, effort will always be rewarded. If people put the hard work in, then it's a question of just tweaking the intention. So the next person's progress is a reflection of my own. So think about that when it comes to your development, because depending upon your goal that you're trying to achieve, then you should really consider how you can easily improve the quality and stock and results of the team around you. So that's the first thing that I think that you should consider. Let's go to point number 2 now. We spoke about this briefly in a previous training, and I want to really hammer it home. Ali Abaid mentioned it, but the importance of creating multiple one-way doors when it comes to any journey that you want to embark upon. So the creation of multiple one-way doors, what I mean by that is generating decisions that are then ultimately somewhat painful for you to return backwards from. So I continuously now say I want to build £1 billion company before I'm 50. I do that because it enters into my psyche. I create some level of accountability, and I can say, actually, I only want to go after £500 million. But it actually hurts me now to say that because I have my own sense of incongruency because of an internal inconsistency I've created. That's bucket number one. So I talk about the goals that I want to generate because then it starts to create that one-way door. And there's multiple ways, of course, to create one-way doors. The other way I'm going to create that one-way door is I'm going to, on my coaching session this week, talk to Valentina, my business coach, about I want to do this. Can you remind me of this every 3 months? How are you progressing towards generating £1 billion, Deepak? And Valentina, can you give me some ideas as to what I should do? So that's going to be ultimately constraint number two, because I'm creating the ultimately idea with an audience, but an audience that can't really direct and navigate. But then I'm talking to my business coach. So as much as you create multiple one-way doors within each of the areas that you want to focus upon. So we talk about our garden, which is our whole sense of self-development. And then we talk about our trees in our garden, which should all be watered: health, wealth, self, and everyone else. Please refer back to some of my other videos if you're wondering what that is. But how can you create multiple one-way doors in each of the buckets in your life, or each of the trees in your garden? So if you think about wealth, one of the one-way doors will be that I'm going to figure out the actions necessary to double my income within 1 year from now. That is one of the goals, and I'm going to tell everyone that I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go to Deepak and ask him about that, and I'm going to ask people to hold me accountable to that. So that could be an example of the way that you can create one-way doors. But really think about each of the areas. So that was wealth. Then you've, of course, got health. I commit to entering a 5K run. I'm going to find one now in my local area. That's 2 months from now. And I don't give a shit. Even if I end up walking it, I'm going to pay and enter that race. I'm going to post it on my social media platforms. Malcolm, I'm thinking of you. And I'm going to do that damn race, because that's going to then create the necessary one-way doors for me to increase my levels of health. And the knock-on effect of that might be, you know what? I'm training for this 5K run. Why the hell am I drinking a can of Coke every single day? So push yourself into those places, because it's the process that the action will generate that becomes the important part. So all of you, I'm a great believer, and I still need to discuss this. Every person in their life should participate in some type of physically competitive event. The result of the event doesn't matter. It's the act of participation that will drive change in your personal lives. Everyone should be able to run 5K. Everyone should be able to do some form of resistance training. So figure out the relevant events, or figure out the relevant goal, and then speak about it, financially commit to it, and create those one-way doors in every area of your life. Because then when the motivation stops, as they say, you'll still think, well, fuck, I've got to do this 5K damn run that I've already signed up for and I paid for and I posted it on my Facebook. So I better go out and at least do something. Something is always better than nothing. One push-up is always better than no push-up. So create the mechanisms and structures for one-way doors in each of the garden, or each of the trees in your garden. So talking about the trees in your garden, I go on to point number 3 now. So one of the things that are important for me is that I have, sorry guys, let me just adjust this here because I've got my points I want to talk about. So you've got your trees, as we talk about health, wealth, self, and everyone else. Everyone should read 3 bestsellers for each of those trees, because you're limited. If your motivation is there, and we're going to assume it's there, you're limited by the reservoir of tactics that you can draw from. You don't know which tactic is going to generate the best result in your life. So if you think about health, have you read 3 bestsellers on health? If you're, for example, a vegetarian, have you read about the best and most advanced research on being, for example, a vegan? Have you read anything that relates to improving your anaerobic threshold? Whatever the bestsellers might be, read 3 bestsellers from 3 different thinkers to get a diverse range of insights for each of the buckets in your life. So health, self, wealth, everyone else, read 3 bestsellers. That's 12 books, okay? That's 12 books. That could be 1 a month. That could be 1 every 2 weeks, but make sure you get those read, because for the most part, most people fail because they tend to only educate themselves in an academic fashion in one quadrant in their life, which is wealth. But people don't educate themselves in the other areas. They don't treat it like the science that you should treat it. I've become a much, much, much better relationship partner because I read books about how to be better in relationships. That changed everything for me because I used to be arrogant enough, like some of the people around me, to think that, well, you figure it out on the job. Of course, because you learn, as we talk about, you learn from your first breakup and your relationship and your arguments. But why don't you get the textbook to understand that there's different ways that you didn't know existed when it comes to how to be a better relationship partner? And then there's constituent parts of it, frankly. You can read about attraction, dating, romance, sex, cooking, all of it. So it filters down. So think about the four ultimately trees in your garden and make sure that you water each of them. And don't be arrogant enough to assume that you already know because you think you're already doing okay. You've got no sense of what great looks like because you probably never forcibly exposed yourself to it. You got no sense of it. So think about that. Read 3 bestsellers for each of the trees in your garden, and you'll be blown away. So if anyone hasn't read, for example, the 5 love languages when it comes to relationships, if everyone hasn't read Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, if anyone hasn't read, for example, Too Good to Leave or Too Bad to Stay, when it talks about the principles of how to look for toxic parts in your relationship. These are 3 books that changed how I viewed my relationship. And almost all of my friendship circle had not read them. And I said, okay. And it changed how I communicated with my relationship. So I'm zoning in here on relationships, but that's just one aspect of it. Then you've, of course, got self. Are you reading books on self-esteem and confidence and how to be happy within one's own skin and thinking about anxiety and self-esteem and confidence? Read in these areas, improve your mind because everything begins at a metaphysical level. So you cultivate this and then you can cultivate everything else. So that's why I'm so big on the self-education part of it. And that's something that I recommend that you do. Read bestsellers to water every tree in your garden. So that's the 3rd point. The 4th point is that you want to focus on month-to-month progress rather than day-to-day. It is important to be gentle with yourself. It is important to be balanced. So a practical example of that is that I've come away from a 1-week holiday. I did not open up my laptop for that entire 1 week. I have come back now, and I'm not waking up at 4:30. Yesterday, I woke up at 8:30 a.m. Today, I woke up at 7:30 a.m. I'm gentle with myself because I care about the longer-term goal. And I accept that as long as there's gentle progress day by day, then the result will take care of itself. And I look at it again at month to month and I look at the win. I think that, well, you know what? I've never until last week taken an entire 1-week holiday ever. It was my first ever 1-week holiday where we went to a beach and Daniela booked it specifically because it was 1 week. And one thing that my friend Axel said to me, because I said, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm at the beach and I'm not working. He says, yeah, but you're investing in your relationship. So accept that you're there, focus on Daniela and make this a holiday that you'll always remember as being the first 1-week holiday that you took together and had an amazing time. So think of it like an investment because it is an investment. Actually, your relationship is your biggest investment in your entire life because she's going to be there when you're 50, she's going to be there potentially when you're 100. So embrace it, accept it, and use that for that. And it was really interesting to reframe it in that way. And that made me look at it as ultimately something that was for me to be happy about. And I've come back now, and I also accept that I'm not going to immediately go from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. wake ups every day, whereas going to bed at maybe midnight, 1 a.m. to then boom, waking up at 4:30 a.m. I'm gentle with myself because I look at my month-to-month progress and I think that was a win because Daniela and I even said, wow, we went away for 1 week. We were on the beach. We've never done that before. We had a great time. We didn't argue once. We spoke about the idea of adopting a child. For those of you who heard about it, that we've got this vision of adopting a child from India, like from an orphanage next year, something that we want to do. And we also then came back and yesterday, talking about like the secret and my investment in the relationship, Daniela went to the pet shop to buy some food for our cat. And she saw an advert for a border collie, which is the world's most intelligent dog. And I've always spoken about wanting a border collie because they're great running dogs. They can run up to 20 miles a day. And she saw randomly an advert for a family that's giving up their own border collie. So we've now got a interview with the owner and their dog next week to maybe adopt this dog. So actually, I focus on the month-to-month progress rather than day-to-day, because that focus of energy in this week is seeming to pay many massive dividends for me. So focus on progress month to month rather than day to day. And whatever you're doing at that time, and I'll come to this later, but invest deeply in the thing you're doing at that time, because there will be a big payoff. There will always be a big payoff. So I'm so happy now that I didn't interrupt our time away with me jumping on the laptop to check in with the team. I was on my phone for the entirety of the holiday in terms of work, but it's given me so many things. This idea of adopting a child, the fact that we saw an advert for the border collie dog, the fact that we went away for 1 week and we didn't argue once. We laughed and smiled the entire time, and I was better as a relationship partner. And I saw that, wow, I progressed so much, because we can never just spend 1 week together, me and her, 24 hours a day without at least having one argument. So that's where I focus on the month-to-month progress rather than the day-to-day. So that's point number 4. Point number 5 is switching gears now. We discussed this before when it comes to your life. Your ability to generate value and to become a man or person of value exists in everything that's outside of the box. Outside of the box is what I call, or we relate to, critical thinking. So you need to develop a questioning mind. You need to develop the ability to say why with almost everything you get exposed to include the things that I say to you, to include the things that anyone says to you. And that's a muscle that most people don't build, because we find comfort in processes, because we get exposed or taught through rote learning, learn this sequence, and then as a consequence, this sequence will set you free. But that's industrial style thinking, Henry Ford motor car, where you'd work in a conveyor belt system. And as you know, ultimately, the biggest leverage for those of you who are listening that the West has over the East is that a big thing they speak about, and it's changing now, but you can aggressively change it within your own lives, is that in the West, the biggest emphasis is on creative thinking and critical thinking. In the East, the biggest focus is on labor and output as a metric or a unit. And the challenge with that is that then the only leverage you have is your own hands. But if you can cultivate your mind and your critical thinking, you can find new ways to generate amazing returns. And that's all the stuff that exists outside of the box. That's where people are highly remunerated or highly rewarded, because they can discover something that fundamentally other people don't have immediate awareness or perception of. So that's the critical thinking piece. Practically, what does that mean? As we discussed about it, learn, like, debate with people, think critically, question things. One of the things that we used to do at university for the entirety of my degree, I studied English literature at Warwick University, was that we would have seminars, which is basically we get a poem that takes about 5 minutes or less to read. Often it takes 2 minutes. And we sit in a group of 10 people and we literally debate the poem for 1 hour. What are people's perceptions of this? What do you think about his use of imagery? What do you think about his use of light? What does this say about the author? What does this say about society at the time? Is this thinking still current in today's world? Why has this become seminal literature? Is it still seminal literature? What do you think about the principle of this being taught and instructed to us right now at this time in your journey and your education? How, if anything, would you change what's written here? Do you think that this is an accurate representation of the time, or do you see the author's biases creep into it? Let's look up and see what we know about the author. How has the author's life influenced the things that he's written in this text? Why do you think that about his use of lighting, and why do you disagree? How might you switch it? Our focus was going really deep with the things that we got exposed to. And sometimes there would be 10 line items, 10 lines, and we'd spend an hour discussing it. What that taught us was how to think very deeply about the things that we get exposed to. So practice reflective thinking, because that's where all the value is. What do you think about it? How can you come up with a compelling insight that's different from everyone else who says, well, clearly you just need to, and if we take it now into the practical space with lead generation, clearly you just need to improve your email open rate. Ta-da. No, it's not as simple as that. Clearly, you just need to get through to more decision makers. No, it's not as simple as that. Clearly, you need to focus on increasing the number of applicants you get into the recruitment pool. No, it's not as simple as that. If it was as simple as that, we'd have already solved the problem. The problem wouldn't exist. So becoming better critical thinkers is something that's really key. So that's point number 1, 2, 3, 4. We get to point number 5, I beg your pardon. Point number 6 is, we spoke about this briefly yesterday, but this principle of extreme ownership. So extreme ownership comes from a gentleman called Jocko Willink, and Jocko Willink, Jocko. He's got a book called Extreme Ownership. You can have a look at it or read the summary. But the principle is, I take ownership over everything that I see. Everything that I see and I witness is something that I am responsible for. If I see it, it doesn't matter whose responsibility it is. I am still responsible because I was exposed to ultimately that fundamentally action or that knowledge. You know, within the world, we spoke about this, but within the criminal justice system, if you witness something and then you don't report it, you're considered an accessory to murder. So you are punished at a criminal level if you witness something but you do nothing about it. Don't be that person within business. Don't be that person within life. You don't need to wait for someone else to clean up after you because it's their responsibility. If they've not done it, then clean it up yourself. It'll make you better. And if we go back to ultimately the first point, the next person's progress reflects my own, it will help make the team better because they'll say, wow, Temi's doing her own job and she's doing the job of several other people around her. So take extreme ownership and be responsible for all that you see. Because also the people that are above you or the people that you report to will assume that you are the leader and that ultimately you are responsible. If you're part of the team, think about this. If you're part of any team, it doesn't matter whether you're the leader, you're responsible for your team. Operate in that fashion. Take extreme ownership. If you're the project manager, you're in control of everything. So that is a way that you can progress. And that's the difference between being good, and there's many good teams out there, right? And being fucking great. Very, very, very few fucking great teams that are out there, okay? And the great teams take extreme ownership. They say, I'm going to fix all of the problems. Imagine being in a team where everyone takes extreme ownership. That's going to be a fucking great team. It's going to be a really, really good team because you'll just all take responsibility for each other, okay? So that's the next point. Moving on, point number, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Point number 8. Point number 7, rather, even. So you need to set up innovation systems to support each tree in your garden. So what do I mean by that? One of the things that I'll do on a monthly basis is I will have literally a list of questions. Now again, okay, I'll go. Yeah. So I talk with Valentina, and once a month she'll remind me saying, Deepak, let's do that 2-minute exercise again. And there'll be a series of questions, and I have to brainstorm in 2 minutes the answers to those questions. And one of the questions would be, how can I 10x the results that I'm getting from business? The next question will be, how can I build a £1 billion company? The next question could be, how can I become an elite athlete in ultra running even quicker? The next question is, how can I become a much better relationship partner? So she asks me these questions every month, and I have 2 minutes to answer, and it continuously forces me to remind myself on how can I innovate? How can I be better? How can I generate better systems? So I have a systematized process to think about innovation to support each tree in my garden. So are you guys doing that? What are the important questions? And do you set yourself a calendar reminder each month where you then spend 2 minutes, 5 minutes with a clock, really thinking hard about how can I accelerate this result? How can I, and it can be different for each tree in your garden. So one of the questions could be, how can I get below 15% body fat if you're a man, as an example? It'd be like, and you could focus on that once a month and be like, right. And what you'll find is that engages your thinking mind. It engages your propensity, your ability to take action quickly, and it will institute a process of continuous innovation within your own life, which is why I came up with the idea of I'm just going to attempt to enter a CrossFit event. I don't know what I'm getting into, but I know that it's going to drive me towards having the body that I want at the age that I am. And it's changing a lot of things. So set up innovation systems to support each tree in your garden. It can begin with thinking about what the right questions are, and then just remind yourself each month and take a couple of minutes to brainstorm. And you can have an accountability partner if you want to with it, to then share your ideas with each other and then say, okay, cool, see you next month. Let's just see where we got with last month's innovations. Okay, so with that in mind, we'll go to the next point, which is set up an open loop feedback process for improvement. Okay, so if you have someone, so what I mean by open loop feedback process for improvement, you need to continue, and this is where most people suffer. You need to set up a mechanism to have your important work audited on a consistent basis, and audited by someone who you think has the ability to see holes in your work. So for example, Temi, as I see the people that are in the room, make sure that you, for example, say once a week, I'm going to see if I can grab Deepak's time and ask him to tear apart my work. What don't I see? Right, think about that, guys. What don't I see? That's where a lot of value lies. There is, of course, a huge amount of value in having your own constructive feedback and reflecting, but we all accept and agree it's easier to have a teacher who just fucking marks your work. Are you developing systems for that teacher? Find the teacher for each of the trees in your garden. The teacher can be, of course, the ultimate power is being your own teacher, which is what everyone should be doing. But if you can add teachers or mentors or coaches or instructors and set up open feedback loops, so I mean open because they're continuous and they're never ending, do that, because that's how you accelerate your progress. That's how you get better really quick. So systematize that, okay? Systematize that. So that's the next point. The final point that I've got here is, it sounds cliche, but practice really listening, because listening is really hard. So I've given you multiple points here. If you listen, you'll actually go ahead and generate actions for each of the corresponding points. But what tends to happen is that people miss the vast majority of it, because when we go into our meetings, when we review the WhatsApp groups, when we review the email threads, we consistently miss details and things slip by because we're not listening and focusing as much as we should. So people underestimate the power of listening. The SEO team that are here, I sent a 3-minute voice note, the internal SEO team. All of the responses were shit because people weren't really listening. They weren't really listening to my message. I sent a 3-minute voice note and I spoke about all of the areas that I'm thinking about. And Dinesh, you chose to, and it's not a problem, you chose to only focus on your audio. And I think that now that I've told you, the next person's progress reflects my own, you could still take it upon yourself to answer every single issue that I had. You could say, well, Deepak, in regards to the affiliate, what I'll do is I'll talk to Farman and I'm going to team up with him and come back to you and give you some. You could have broken down every single thing that I asked and you could have replied to every single thing. And in doing so, demonstrated that you're a leader, demonstrated that you take extreme ownership. Remember, we spoke about this. Extreme ownership. If you hear it, it is your responsibility, because I will still hold you responsible. Think about the criminal justice system, because you heard it and you did nothing about it. So why should you be absconded or ultimately not involved in any guilt that relates to it? So practice fucking listening. Listening is really hard. People don't, I know that people don't have that skill because most messages get lost because it's like, bro, were you fucking listening? The other SEO leaders team, as we know, when I gave feedback about DAR Global, I sent a screenshot saying, this is not detailed enough about the technical SEO. Then I sent another screenshot about the page speed. And I said, you needed to do and a done list. People weren't listening. Practice listening. So listening is something you have to do slowly and with intention if you miss things, because most people miss many messages because you have a brain that you haven't trained to listen and to think deeply. Again, it relates back to the critical thinking, okay? As I said, through my university career, we met for several hours a week and all we did was analyze, and go as deep as possible with tiny amounts of text. So You can recreate that training, and that will enhance your ability to pick up on all of the messages. So, from the top, the next person's progress reflects my own. The next person's progress reflects my own. So I must improve the ability and quality of my team. Second point, I must create multiple one-way doors in my life to drive the progress that I seek. Relying on willpower alone is fucking naive. You must create one-way doors so that the going backwards is so painful that the only way is forward. I must read multiple bestsellers to water every tree in my garden. If I don't, that's my arrogance. That's my ego to assume that I have all of the answers about how to be more self-confident, about how to be a better public speaker, about how to be a better relationship partner, how to be a better lover, how to be a better communicator in my relationship, which is everyone else, how to accelerate in my career, how to hold better standards at work, how to innovate within the role that I have, how to think about ultimately my role as the CEO of my own position, which is wealth. How do I consistently throughout the entirety of my adult life maintain less than 15% body fat? How do I ensure I can always run a 6-minute mile? What do I need to do that? Do I have the answers? Have I actually benchmarked what good health looks like? Is good health just being able to walk up a hill every day? That's what fucking old people call good health. I've got a higher standard than that. What is the standard that I want to ascribe to? Let me read about it and let me define my own standard. Let me not allow other people's standards to be my own, because fuck your standards, because I look at your life and that's not the life that I want. Set your own standards. Be your own standard. So that's where it comes to reading the multiple bestsellers. And then you focus on the month-to-month progress rather than day-to-day, because I'm still gentle. You should still be gentle with yourself and look at the wins. Don't kill yourself day-to-day, because you need to have the energy to last month-to-month, to year, to decade. So building your energy systems for that. Becoming a better critical thinker. What do I think about this? Have I found 10 different ways to approach this problem? Am I even aware? Can I even think of 10 different ways on the spot? Well, if I can't, then there's probably, I need to evolve my thinking. I need to involve my creative thinking faculties. I need to systematize a process for becoming a better critical thinker so I can come up with more instant and more unique and more compelling solutions to unorthodox problems, because the world rewards problem solvers. Take extreme ownership and responsibility for all that you see. If I see it, I'm responsible for it. That's it. No negotiation. If I see it, I'm responsible for it. It's my responsibility. Why? Because that's the kind of fucking human I want to be in life. I want to be like, you know what? The rubbish was left out. I'll take care of it, because that's the kind of person I am. Because it's about me. It's about my progress. If I see every hill that if I'm going to sweat anyway and I live in South Africa, every hill I see, I'm going to fucking run. Because who gives a shit about being fucking, ownership, responsibility, standards, whatever it is. Take extreme ownership and responsibility for all that you see, and you'll just become better. I made a determination that every time I went and got a coffee, I'd run up the hill. And it was, and of course it relates to work. I'm talking about the self, but that's a big thing for me. Set up innovation systems to support each tree in your garden. How do I 10x every area of my life? Am I asking myself that systematically? Sometimes it's easy as asking the right questions. Am I asking myself the right questions? Am I asking myself the right questions on a regular basis? Because the brain tends to want to find answers to questions. So just ask, it just begins with asking the right question. And are you asking the right questions on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis? Start asking yourself the right questions. Set up an open feedback loop for improvement. Who are the teachers? Who are the mentors? Who are the people to show me what I don't see? Have I systematized the process to get access to their time? Have I even thought about that? Why don't I do that? Because that's going to help me accelerate. Because there's always going to be things that I don't see. I need someone to support me with that, because that's going to help propel and push me. And then practice listening. Because I've given you a lot of systems and processes in this call, but are you really listening? How much are you going to action and take on board? Listen. Listening is hard. It's really, really fucking hard. Most people don't do it. But in doing it, it sounds so simple, but most of the most difficult things in life are simple to say, but really, really difficult to do. So just listen. Right. Let's now go around the room and get people's feedback based upon today. So whoever would like to go, over to you guys in terms of the main takeaways. Ali?
Yeah, so basically, uh, it's something that I need to improve on myself, honestly. That I hear lots of stuff, but it would be stupid right now to say that uh, I I don't really have answer for that, because it's not possible. You have some thought, just give it some time. So I need to improve that in me, because I don't do that. I might, most of time I could, it's my mind, honestly. I even forget to boil some stuff, the milk and so on and so forth. But that's, I shouldn't just, as you say, that it shouldn't be normal for me to assume that okay, it's the way it is, so I should just leave it as it is. I should learn to teach myself to remember stuff, to answer stuff, to take it upon myself, obviously, as you said, because if I don't, then I'm a criminal. And if I go by this thought, I'm more likely to engage. And obviously, one of my bad habits is I am bad engager. I'm a guy who doesn't engage too much. So yeah, that would be my main takeaway, that I need to improve this. There's a lot to improve, honestly. The more I think about it, there's a lot to improve. Human cannot, and again, I'm not sure whether I can say that the human cannot do it. Maybe he can do it. A person can do it in his lifetime to improve his himself to the highest of you know
Yeah. Yeah.
possible improvements. So yeah, I'm trying. I'm gonna try, but again, as you said, I'm gonna analyze myself in parts on a monthly basis and see where I have improved.
Good.
Yeah,
Amazing. It sounds like it has a lot of personal ramifications for you, is what I'm hearing with the milk example. When it comes to one of the things that I often see my limitation, and it's something I've only become awakened to in the last couple of months, was that there would traditionally be things that Daniela would do in the house. And then as a consequence, I would notice that they were not done, but then not do things about it. And I thought, how arrogant of me. Why can't I just fucking remember to take out the rubbish? Why can't I just always wash your dishes if I see them that they're there? I don't need to wait. I can do all of that shit. And lo and behold, once you start getting your head around it, it's not that fucking hard. And the benefit that I got in my relationship as a consequence of just being that guy who'd be like, okay, well, she slept in this morning because she's tired. I'll do the dishes because I see it, so I should be fucking responsible for it. So just fucking do it, bro. Like I have to say it to myself, just fucking stop being a bitch and just fucking do it. And it's my limited thinking to think, oh well, I need to focus on what will I know. I'm a man. I can fucking do it all. I can do it
yeah,
all. I can fucking do it all. And that's actually the champion mindset that you want. So be like, I can cook the food. I can do it for both of us, because who am I to be so stupid to think that, well, I want to build a 1 billion pound company, but I can't support my own household at the same time. How am I going to do when if Daniela's sick or if she's unwell and I need to do everything? Like now's practice. This is your opportunity, bro, to fucking win. And actually, that's been one of the things that Daniela has noticed that gives her more confidence about when we have children. And she says, well, I'm going to be bedridden sometimes, or maybe I'm not going to be able to take care of shit. So the things that you do now give me a vision of the future. It's been really interesting that now one of the things that's changed within her is that she is excited about the idea of us having children. And ironically, the thing that did it was the change in my fucking attitude about, oh, okay, well, I see the dishes. Just fucking do the dishes. Put them in the dishwasher. Figure it all out yourself. So it's crazy the returns that you get when you start taking extreme ownership. Everything that I see, I am fucking responsible for. And actually, I realize, well, that's the kind of man I want to be. I don't want to fucking be like, oh, yeah, I don't want to subscribe to other people's bullshit fucking stereotypes. To be like, well, no, bro, stop being a fucking bitch. It doesn't matter if it's your birthday and you expect food to be cooked for yourself. Fucking cook. Man up, figure it out. It's not that fucking hard. So thank you, Ali. I appreciate that. I'm quite passionate about that one, especially in our personal lives. I think growing up in the family that I did as well, and seeing how my dad is, and I'm like, that's not I love my dad, and there's many things that he does that are great, but there's some things that I would absolutely say I don't subscribe to. But it's what I've modeled because it's what I've been exposed to, and unknowingly I had to unlearn something that I'd seen.
Yeah, that's the Asian culture.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm learning to defy that. But ironically, I'm not in Italy or UK, so it's hard because people see and they comment on it. Oh,
yeah,
you're washing dishes while your wife is sleeping. What kind of man are you? So it's kind of hard,
yeah. I
but
agree. I agree. Everyone will face different demons and challenges in their life, of course. Your demons are not mine, and they're your own. So take ownership over that and be like, yeah, this is what I say to that because you're not going to be limited by that kind of thinking, even if that might be the thinking of society at large, especially probably for almost all of the people in this room, it's not something that is alien, and it's yeah, no, I understand it, and and I agree, mate. And I had to unlearn it when I went into a relationship, frankly, with an Italian woman from northern Italy who had a very different upbringing. She was like, what the fuck? So I was like, oh, okay, I can't do that because it's not acceptable in this relationship. And it was a rude awakening when I went through that journey, and it's something I still continue to go through because it bleeds into different areas, and I don't realize. So yeah, thank you, Ali. Let's go to Malcolm.
So one point you mentioned me specifically, which is something I've never thought about, is competitive running, you know. I've always tried to be gentle myself because I'm just starting, but I've never actually thought about, getting into an event and actually running, which is something of consideration now. But my main takeaway is the next person's progress is a reflection of your own. And with extreme ownership, I think with that, I actually noted some of my personal points that I'm going to start doing now after this meeting on how we can make that better, specifically for me and the whole SEO team. So that's my main takeaway. Next person's progress is a reflection of your own.
Yeah. Great. So two things. I'd say that it's absolutely important to be gentle with yourself, but also pick out some things that are really fucking hard. Because then if you're continuously gentle, you never know what your limit is. And therefore you limit your own progress. You don't know what you're capable of, bro. So be gentle in your approach, but yeah, enter a fucking 5K, 10K, 20. I'm a great believer, and that's where a lot of the modern thinking, certainly with some of the thinkers that I look at. So Alex Hormozy, I talk about him a lot. The new modern style of successful man that I subscribe to is every man should be able to run a mile under 6 minutes. Every man should be able to maintain less than 15% body fat. Every man should be able to compete at some level in a physical way. Every man should be a loving husband, a faithful, loving father, and faithful. And you don't need to drink on a Friday night and get pissed to have a good time. So a lot of people find that actually uncomfortable. But if you live by that, mate, I think it's like that. These are the standards. So to head in that direction, be gentle with yourself day to day, but set yourself an uncomfortable goal. I would say to every fucking man in this room, yeah, of course you should be able to fucking run 10K. How you expect to live into your 80s or lift up? Like I don't ever want. So I'm 38, right? I'm gonna have probably kids. Let's say by the time I'm 40, 42, 45, depending upon we want to adopt, right? In 20 years from now, if I have a 20-year-old kid, I'll be 65. I have this vision of being able to beat my 20-year-old kid at a 10K race because I see fucking other 65-year-olds doing it. And I'm like, well, to be that guy, there's things I need to do fucking now because I don't want to subscribe to this notion of like my dad has got old fast. It's a big thing around ethnic minority communities. Like my dad has got old fast, but then I see fucking 65-year-olds on YouTube doing muscle ups and doing pull-ups. I see 75-year-olds running 100 fucking miles and beating people that are 25-year-old. I saw it at the 100-mile event, and I'm like, that's the in my mind, I'm like, that's a real fucking man. That's a real fucking man. Why can't I do that? So I've got quite strong ideas. I was on holiday, Daniela. I actually get very negative when I see people that haven't taken care of themselves physically. because I think, well, how can you take care of yourself mentally if you're not taking care of yourself physically? For me, it's just fucking unacceptable. Um, um, because it bleeds into everything else. But the way to jumpstart that is to have that uncomfortable goal. And then equally, going on to your second point, yeah, I said to you, you're the longest standing person on the SEO team. So I see you as responsible for the entire team. And that's just how the world is, right? We find leaders and we say, because you're going to lead, so Ali leads the web development for all of DAR Global, and they're our biggest paying client. In my mind, Ali's responsible for the React team. So Ali can then take it upon himself, as he is, extreme ownership. Why do I need to be limited by my inability to learn fucking React? Why I need to have the ability to spot problems. That's the whole extreme ownership. If I see it, I'm responsible for it. So I think that's great, and I think that should bleed down into everything, and then you can try and raise the team up with you. So great, Malcolm. And there you go, guys. You've got some insights into my personal thoughts, which not everyone necessarily agrees with. So sometimes I keep it to myself. But thank you, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I just want to go back on I think what was really powerful, I guess, is that of your reflection is based on others' progress. And I think for me, I'm quite a good example because in my previous job, when I first started out, I think I was very fortunate enough to work in a team that the person that was leading the team was a great inspiration, the way that he took ownership. And because of that, he didn't force anyone to do it. He took a lot of ownership on the responsibility, so that when it comes to any issue problems, he's the first one that everyone goes to. He's the one that when people say if he was to go, everything will fall apart. And because of that first-hand experience, it almost created that domino effect where the people around him raise up. And that's just a byproduct where he's doing that work. Why I couldn't do it? I wanted to be to that growth where I want to be in that position where one day I want to be where if I was to lead a team, I want to be where I was become almost indispensable that
Yep.
people want you to stay. They will fight for you to stay.
Yep.
And so just when you just said it, it's sort of brought back that flashback, and it's quite interesting because I guess you said you don't real people do it sometimes do it without realizing it, but when you realize it, it just shows how powerful that ownership. End of the day, you can be you can help the team, you help the company grow as much as you want, but end of the day, it's your own personal growth. You are essentially your captain of your own ship. You are the one that dictate where you want to go. You can grow as much as you want. You can do the bare minimum, or you can be the one that, you know what, I can do this. I want to take ownership. And yeah, so I feel like I'm sort of byproduct of someone's extraordinary growth. So, and hopefully one day I'll be to that standard or even surpass him one of these days.
Absolutely.
That's sort of my ambitious.
Amazing. Look, amazing, bro. I think that there's several systems I've given you here. Just implement as much as you can, and then you can accelerate that growth. And what I'm trying to do with the team, I was talking about it with Daniela, is that a lot of these things and it's fine because that's the way it is. I've had to figure out myself because I didn't have mentors, and I thought, well, I can be a mentor to this entire team and help people accelerate their growth. So absolutely, all of that's possible. So build your open feedback loop, build your system for innovation with your monthly check-ins with yourself to say, what am I doing to 10x this? Set an uncomfortable goal in your personal life when it comes to health. Then also get the relevant books for each of the buckets and commit to make a lifetime commitment to self-development, because it is a lifetime commitment, and you'll see that you will achieve things way quicker than you think. I'm in a smaller bucket of people now that I've done that 100-mile run, and I'm going to go into an even smaller bucket because, as you saw, I was accepted for that 200-mile run, and I'm already talking to my coach and I say, look, is it possible for me to become an elite athlete in the world of ultra running? And he says, yeah, I think you've got the raw tools. because he was saying your resting heart rate is 39 beats a minute, Killian Jornay's is 34. You're at an age now where ultra runners even begin, and yeah, it's possible. And I think that most people don't approach these things with intention. Most people just approach their career with intention. But if you begin to approach your whole life with intention, you can achieve ridiculous things. You can, and that's why Daniela now and I are like, cool. We'll have 2 of our own kids and we'll fucking adopt 3 kids. Why not? Why not? She, for a long time, in the background where she's from in Italy, my approach to life is unusual and unorthodox. And like, we come back to Italy now, and I've seen a lot of our friends and the way they think about life, and the limited mindset that's attached to it. But yeah, it will rub off on the people around you, as you said, because you've seen what your old boss did, and you're like, well, why can't I? Your old mentor, and you think, well, why can't I do that? Why can't I become indispensable? And you can do things that will appear like alchemy to other people in time, but it's all about the intentionality and how you approach that cliche concept, but it hits me differently now. It's like approach every day of life like it was on purpose, and say, okay, cool, today. So great, amazing, thank you, James. Let's go 3 more people, whoever would like to go, and then we'll wrap. Okay, all right, well, on that note then, we will finish if there is no one else. Although I would like to hear from some specific people. So Waleed, I'd like to hear from you as to what your main takeaways are.
Yeah, when your takeaways are like why you don't have
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
All right, whilst Waleed is fixing his audio, Sakshi, I'd like to hear from you. Just one thing.
Yeah, sure. Am I audible enough? Thank you. So I personally feel that, where you spoke about monthly accountability, I feel that since I'm new, I used to get lost initially, but now I feel that I'm somewhere on track, basically working on surface and helping out, with other things as well. So initially I used to think that, I'm not being much helpful. I'm not, progressing that much. But now, after I see like this 3-month progress, I feel that, okay, I have achieved something, even if not great, but something. And towards the end of the month, maybe I can do even better and have this whole monthly accountability for myself.
Cool, amazing. Thank you for that. And then we'll go with Waleed, and then everyone, we can wrap. Account management team and SEO team stay on. We'll go through some training quickly in relation to our stuff. So Waleed, go ahead.
So can you hear me now?
It's slightly better. It's not great. Fix your audio for next time, but I can hear you, man. I can hear you. Go ahead.
So my key takeaway are like I don't have to limit myself. So if a new task or something comes up, I have to action upon it immediately. Just like yesterday, you said we should give at least 9 to 10 reasons that why this ranking drops or why this happened. So yeah, we have to train our brain for instant answers with proper reasoning, not just throwing the answers. Just have a fast capability of analyzing stuff really fast. So yeah, I'm thinking of like putting myself in different tasks like later night when I give my EOD. So I was going to sleep. Then a certain thing comes in my mind and I hop back on my device and start learning some new link building strategies and start implementing those stuff, reading about it, like how we can apply that. So yeah, I'm trying to do stuff.
Cool,
I'm
great.
trying to put myself in hard situations. So yeah.
Good, amazing. All right, thank you, Waleed. No, I appreciate that, and I think that, as you said, instant answers, being analytical, and having comprehensive replies, and as you said, not thinking, well, I just build the link, so I won't comment on anything else. You're a great SEO. you can offer insights on everything, and you can come up with the answers. So it's definitely possible. All right, on that note, thank you, everybody. Catch you next time.